Hi, everyone. This is Veronica from RightAnswers. This image, kind of the chicken and the egg. One of the things that people really focus on is providing access channels to their users, right? Whether it's your portal, whether it's a portal that you're using with your ITSM system, or you're deciding about what your mobile strategy is going to be and providing that to your users. People are very focused on channels. And you can have the most beautiful channels in the world, but if you don't have good knowledge to support them, people are not going to have a good experience. And the whole idea is to allow your users to find the answers that they're looking for really quickly, solve their issues, and get back to work and back to being productive. So we kind of say that knowledge comes first, and that is, the chicken or the egg, however you want to perceive whichever comes first. Okay, and when you do put knowledge first, some of the things that you're trying to achieve is, it says here a knowledge base that's clean and consistent. Well, what does that mean? That means getting rid of articles that are similar but don't really hit the mark. That means making sure that everything is up to date and answering the questions that your users are having today. When you're delivering targeted answers, you have different audiences inside your organization. You have, your general workers. You do have, your agents. They're going to look at different knowledge than, someone sitting in the accounting department, right? So you want to deliver the right level of complexity to each of your users. And then a knowledge base that reflects what your users are looking for, right? If you are upgrading systems internally, you're moving to the latest version of a software that you're using, you're coming out with new protocol and procedures for something, and that you want to have the most current stuff in the knowledge base so that people can find the answers for the questions that they have today. You also have knowledge that's used and influenced by everyone. And what does that mean? Well, that means that people can comment on the solutions that they're finding. They can ask other questions. They can suggest new articles to go into the knowledge base. And that just makes the whole knowledge process become organic and become part of everyone's job. And it makes your knowledge base better, and you end up with a knowledge-centered culture. Everybody's contributing. Everybody's thinking about what the next answer is, what the right solutions are. And when you have that great knowledge base, then all your channels are delivering great service and getting your employees back to productivity quickly, and your analysts and agents answering questions more effectively. So, if you think about the channels, they're about providing a good experience from a look and feel perspective and an ease of use. If you don't have, as I said before, if you don't have good knowledge to support them, then people are not going to find what they're looking for, and they're not going to have a good experience, and they're not going to be productive. So think about, they make every channel valuable. The ones you have today, the ones you're thinking about, the ones you don't even know about yet. I mean, think about 5 years ago. Would you have been, using some of the things you're using today? Maybe you're using mobile. You wouldn't have used that 5 years ago. So stuff we don't even know about yet.
Okay. Which brings us to KCS, right? So what is KCS, right? Well, KCS, we say that KCS is a way to get great knowledge. Right? It's a way to put knowledge first. It's a way to ingrain knowledge into your strategy and into your operation. All right. It's a methodology. So it's the processes and the procedures that you would follow in order to manage your knowledge. It's actually not a technology, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. Right. It's a standard. All right. It's knowledge best practice. It's set by the Consortium for Service Innovation. You can find their web address here. They were started actually back in 1992, and it's a group of member companies. They get together regularly, and they go through different ideas and different theories and different ways of approaching service and approaching knowledge, and they'll go back and they'll test these theories, and they'll come together and they'll find the best of them, and they'll put that together. And so through years of experience and years of practice and years of trying, they've come together to create the KCS the KCS handbook, or really the KCS practices guide that you can find on their website. Right? It actually started with a simple premise and very basic goals. Right? We're doing this work already anyway. Right? We're working with our customers. Why aren't we capturing what we know? Why are we not capturing, structuring, and reusing the things that we tell our customers every day? And why aren't we doing this as part of solving the problems, right? We're writing down what we did for our customers. Why aren't we writing it down in a way that other people can get value from that? And then what do we focus on, right? We have all of this information. Well, what do we focus on? Well, we want to focus on the content, and we want to focus on the knowledge that's being used and that's in demand, right? Because nobody has time to do everything, right? So you'd want to evolve things. You want to make them better. You want to make them grow, which helps us develop a knowledge base that's of our collective experience, right? If we have everybody participating in the knowledge process and we're evolving what's the most useful, we have all of our experience to date located in one location, right? And with that comes the concept of rewarding these behaviors, right? Rewarding the learning, rewarding the collaboration, the sharing, and improving of knowledge, and just changing that culture and centering things around knowledge and really making knowledge first. Okay? And so within KCS, what we're going to dive into today is the double loop process. Right? The double loop process is really the core of KCS. Well, actually, it's the knowledge article, right, is the heart of KCS. Right? They say content is king. But how you handle that content or how you create that knowledge is all governed by the double loop process. So you have two different sides to this, and in reality, actually, the solve loop sits inside of the evolve loop. And there's another graphic that's not quite as pretty that shows this. But the solve loop represents the individual workflow that's going to be driven by your incidents, right? The solve loop looks to cover what we do to solve the customer's issue, where the evolve loop is a continuous improvement process. It's the back end and the systemic processes that we run to help continuously solve problems, to help derive what we know or what we learn from the solve loop, and then also to keep the solve loop running and to keep the ecosystem working. So the evolve loop is what really helps the solve loop become effective, but the solve loop is what we do in our day-to-day lives. Again, making knowledge first, right, and integrating that. All right. Now, KCS is...
Hey, Chris?
Oh, yes.
Chris, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but the question just came in on the Q&A box, and I let me just run it by you if that's okay. The person's asking, how does KCS relate to ITIL? And I guess you had mentioned that KCS really is a methodology, whereas ITIL is a framework, right? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, no, not a problem, Dick. Actually, I think you summed it up pretty nicely, right? Where ITIL is a framework, right? And you have change, and you have problem, and you have incident, you have all of the different areas that you're going to have a framework around how you handle. KCS isn't a framework, it's the method, right? So where ITIL would say that you want to utilize knowledge management, you want to have knowledge management tied to incident management, maybe feeding problem management, right? And giving information for request management. KCS is the way that you would do that and the way that your agents would interact with the knowledge base in order to enable those things and plug into that framework. KCS and ITIL are quite complementary. Just reports of people who are doing both, no specific example, but people who are doing ITIL and are using KCS as their knowledge methodology are typically, we hear reports of them being more successful than they were in the past and actually being able to do things such as enable additional channels, be able to provide support in different ways, open up chat as an option, be able to start looking at things like social media as just other ways to engage their customers. So it plugs in nicely into ITIL as a methodology to help support the framework that you're building.
Let me just ask, as long as you are talking about this, let me just ask a follow-up question because I think you've seen studies from Gartner or from Forrester that say that, in terms of the maturity level, most of the customers, even the very large customers, are barely at level 2 or 3, right? So I would assume that the customers that you work with are probably a little bit more advanced than that. Are they really doing the right things from a process or from a KCS perspective, or does they still have a long way to go?
I mean, KCS is an ever-evolving process, right? It's something that is always looking at ways to do items better. KCS, in and of itself, is a continuous improvement process that's built on continuous improvement processes. So they practice what they preach, right? They always go back and they always challenge their ideas and they always look at new ways to do things. I work with customers who are at varying maturity levels that are able to integrate KCS into their environment. They do it at different speeds and they do it in different ways, but just about anybody can learn from the methodologies and put them into practice to see some real benefits and actually help them move forward in their maturity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And so part of how it does that is with kind of the sharing and the collaboration of the things that you do. Now, we say that KCS is a methodology, right? It's not a technology. It's actually enabled by technology. So without technology behind your KCS program, it'll only go so far, right? We say you can do KCS with a pen or really a pencil and paper, right? But you don't want to do that, right? Technology is actually what allows KCS to scale, right? By use of technology, you get integrated processes, you get integrated practices, and you're able to touch multiple people in multiple locations all at the same time, fostering further collaboration and more knowledge collection alongside that. So they say, and they say that the optimal environment for doing KCS is going to have a tight integration between incident management and knowledge management, right? Just so two of the areas from within ITIL, right? And RightAnswers allows us or helps us to do that because RightAnswers is KCS verified for V5. So it's the current verification for KCS, and there's a rigorous process to go through to show and to prove that the platform can support all of the different methodologies and all of the different practices with KCS. There are only 2 vendors on the market today that have received their version 5 verification for KCS, and RightAnswers is the only product on the market that has its verification regardless of what ITSM system you're using alongside it. And that's something that we're very proud of. So KCS is enabled by technology. RightAnswers helps you enable KCS. And so part of what we're going to do is we're going to teach you about KCS. We're going to actually show you, like we said, how RightAnswers enables you to do KCS, right? So we're going to start with the solve loop, as I mentioned, right? The solve loop is the primary solving workflow, problem-solving workflow. It's the primary activity of your support agents, your engineers, anybody who's working on a customer's issue. So this is the first area that we're going to explore.